Ielts International English Language Testing System. Listening 21 hints. Hints 16 to hints 36. I will explain the hints 16 to 36 21 hints, which is very helpful for your IELTS listening test. The first hint is be ready to listen. I will share the details also. We go through the hints first, then learn to predict, then work out the word variables. 19. The answers are often stressed and repeated. 20. Know when to move to the next question. 21. Look at other questions for the answer. 22. Listen for the speaker changing his or her mind. 23. Use shorthand for speedy writing. 24. Practice for listening gap fills. 25. Listening gap fills step by step. 26. Make sure your words and numbers are easy to read. 27. Short answer questions. Specify the topic. 28. Short answer questions summing up. 29. Short answer questions step by step. 30. Practice for multiple choice questions. 31. Multiple choice. Consider all the choices. 32. Multiple choice. Length of the choices. 33. Multiple choice. Length of the choices. 34. Practice for true-false questions. 35. True-false questions 100% words. 36. True-false questions step by step. Go for details. Be ready to listen. The first tip. Number 16 for IELTS listening test. Be ready to listen. Be prepared and ready to listen for the instructions that are given. Listen for the details about the information contained in the coming passages. For example, who, what, where, when, why. First, check where the questions are located on the pages in the section to be heard. In the short time given to you before listening passage begins, which is usually only about 10, 20 or 30 seconds at most. You will get 30 seconds, 20 to 30 seconds at most. You should do your best to predict what you will hear. So here the suggestion is always be ready to listen in the listening test. Go to next hint. Hint number 17. Learn to predict. What does it mean? Read the instructions and questions. Listen to the general information. Listen for specific information. Write the answer as you listen for answers to the questions that follow. Predict the number of people involved and what they might be doing or planning. To score well in listening tests, you need to develop the ability to think ahead. The more effectively you can predict, the quicker your mind will form the correct word associations to make with the topic, and the better you will be able to work out the meaning of what you hear. A useful exercise for helping to develop the ability to predict is to play audio cassette tapes in English. For example, the tape that accompanies this book and pause after every minute or two to ask yourself what will happen, what will hear next. This can also be done with videos, tapes, news items on the TV, interviews on the radios, etc. It is important to think about the words that you expect to hear. Write them down and then check to see how many you guess correctly. The secret to increasing your listening skill is to better predict what you might hear. Here is very important tips. So you need to predict when you stop the cassette or video what's going to happen, what's you going to listen. So this tip, learn to predict, is the most important for listening test. We go for next tip. Work out the word variables. However, it is so easy to make unnecessary mistakes due to nervousness or lack of preparation. Keywords or phrases, you need to listen carefully. Listen for a general understanding of situation and at the same time listen for the specific keyword phrases. Predicting the words you might hear in section 1 is easier if you work out the word variables. The variables are those words and situations in a possible answer that can vary or change according to what you hear on the tape. In many types of questions, multiple choice, for example, those variable word or phrase choices are given to you. In other questions, the choice of words you may hear is completely up to you to predict. So the biggest tips for this, by predicting the variable words to listen for, you increase your chances of hearing the answer. You need to predict what the people is telling, what the sound is coming, who is talking about what. You need to predict. You need to identify. Normally they talk about the noun, and most of the answers are nouns or verbs. You need to be careful to listen. Next tip, number 19, for listening. The answers are often stressed and repeated. When you listen in the audio clip, that time the answers are stressed. Normally they are talking many information, but the answer normally they give some stress. So it's one of the technique to get the answer of the questions, and also they repeated. So you will notice that important information which includes the answer is almost always stressed and quite often repeated 2 or even 3 times. This surprises many candidates when they know the answer and listen again to the tape. So it's a trap. The answer of the question is always stressed and repeated. This is the tips, but a trap is the answer is repeated 2 or 3 times. Be careful about this, practice more, then you will have a good score. Go for next tip. Tip number 20. Know when to move to the next question. Most important tip for the listening. Be aware of the content of the next question. As you listen for the answer to the current question, you could still be waiting for an answer that has already been given. Listen for the question topic, keywords or phrases. Any marker words or phrases, see below what are the markers for word or phrases, and the changes in the speaker's inflection or pitch to help you recognize when the question changed. Once you recognize that the question topic has changed, it is the time to move to the next question, even you have not completed the previous question. Marker words or phrases are those English words or phrases that tell the listener that the topic is changing. So the speaker is changing one topic to another topic. It means you need to move. In below we have some example. You can get it from here. Listen for marker words or phrases so that you know to move on the next question. What are the marker words or phrases? For example, and you, we will. Finally, can you tell us before I move to the next section? And what about? Now tell me. Alright. So the first thing, I would like to move on the. Well, that's about it. Except for next, I would like to start with one more thing. Changes in the speaker's inflection also tell you that the question topic is changing. Usually when an English speaker changes topic, his or her voice will lift considerably in pitch and in level of excitement. Listen to the tape provided with this book for the above or the similar marker word or phrases and try to hear the changes in the pitch and excitement in the voice. You can listen for the real IELTS test. You can get it from the Cambridge books. From there you can get the audio clips or MP3 from where you can practice. Then you can find from there the marker words, how they are changing. Go for next tip. Tip number 21. Look at other questions for the answer. Clues to the answer and even the answers themselves can sometimes be found printed in the test booklet. It's very tricky, so the booklet provided, or if you do the test in the computer, that time you need to see what is written in the questions. Maybe you will get the answer in the question. No need to listen, because it's a somebody talking, is a dialogue. Then when they make the questions, some answer will be in the questions. Other questions you can get the answer of some other questions. So it's also a trick. So go for trick number 22 for IELTS listening. Listen for the speaker changing his or her mind. Whenever the speaker changing his or her mind, possibility of the speaking making corrections to what is said. Let me correct myself before I move to the next. I want to remind this type of phrases or marker they will use. So the speaker changing his or her mind. Number 23 for IELTS listening. Use shorthand for speedy writing. If you want to write full sentences, you will not be able to listen and write the full sentences. The time you need to do is shortcut using the shorthand. For example, you want to write America, just put AM. You want to write memory, MEM. So later when you see this shorthand words, then you can understand. First 2 or 3 letters you can guess. You are very likely to remember what the letters means because they are the first letters of the words you have recently heard in the context. You can practice at home. You can take the words first 2 or 3 letters. For the shorthand, you can do SHO. For the SPEEDY, SPE, SPEE. However, it does require some practice. Not that you would not try to use this method to remember numbers. But with the word answers, you can almost always remember the words again. For the number, you need to put the full number. If you put first 2 or 3 numbers, then you will miss the answer. So be careful, it's about word, not in the number. For number, you need to write completely all. Go to next tip, number 24 for IELTS listening. Practice for listening gap fills. How do you practice? English containing information concerning a particular topic or event. You know the WH question words. In the test in this booklet, both gap fill listening tasks are news items. It is good to practice to listen to the news either on the TV or radio, or try to complete a chart such as the one in the below. You can see the first when you start listening. They are talking about what. Try to, after listen, or during listen, try to write. After listening, you will not get time, so it needs to be parallel. When you listen, you need to write. When you listen, the speaker that time try to guess where it is. Is in the classroom, in the field, in the outside, some shopping mall. or in cyber cafe, when it's in the morning, evening, night, who, how many people, the teacher, the lecturer, the sportsman, how, talking in a speaker, talking to the friend, while running and talking, why, talking to make understand to the student, talking to fulfill his job requirement. So if you can feel during your listen that your listening power will improve. Same thing you repeat for the next item. Do not try to understand every word. This is the mistake. You do not need to understand the am, is, are, was, or the auxiliary verb. You need to know the theme. Most of the answer of the question is the noun. You need to be careful. Noun, verb, most of the time noun. So be careful about this. You practice the similar things. You do not need to try remember 100% of the word. Then you can do better score in listening. Go for next tip. Number 25 for Ielts listening. Listening gap fills step by step. Before you listen, read the instruction carefully. As you listen, when you are listening, choose the keywords or phrases to listen for and be aware of the question changing. Be aware that some of the answers may come quickly, one after another. Be aware that one or two of the answers may not be given in the question order. Be aware that the word or phrase you need may already be on the page. Use shorthand to improve the speed at which you write down your answers. Number 26 for Ielts listening. In the time given to you at the end of the gap fill, make sure your words and numbers are easy to read. Guess the numbers to unanswered questions. Do not leave blanks. Because Ielts doesn't have the negative marking, check that your answers are given in a grammatically correct English. For practice, you can devise or use your own system of note taking. So when you write in the paper, your handwriting should be clear. If you write in the computer, it doesn't matter. But use the words, you need to be correct grammatically. Here the suggestion is you need to use the all capital letters to avoid the mistakes. And consider the singular and plural S and ES when you do this. Number 27 for Ielts listening. Short answer questions. Specify the topic. Before the passage is played, before you listen, as you listen, circle the topic of each question. It will help you to find the answer. Tip number 28 for Ielts listening. Short answer questions. Summing up. You should wait for the speaker to sum up before giving your short answer to a question. If you not do, you run the risk of writing down an answer which may be incorrect or only partly correct. Might also be too busy writing down what you think is the answer and not hear the correct answer in the speaker summing up. Next tip. Tip number 29 for Ielts listening. Short answer questions step by step. Before you listen, read the instruction carefully. As you listen, accurately specify the topic before choosing the keywords or phrases to listen for. And be aware of the question changing. If necessary, wait for the speaker to sum up. In the time given to you at the end of the short answer questions, make sure your words and numbers are easy to read. Guess the answer to understand questions. Do not leave blanks. Check that your answers are given in grammatically correct English. Next tip number 30 for Ielts listening. Practice for multiple choice questions. The choices for the answers to a multiple choice questions are either directly or indirectly supported, correct, directly or indirectly contradict, incorrect, or not mentioned at all, incorrect. When you practice multiple choice question tasks, do not be satisfied with the simply finding the correct answer. Decide if the other incorrect choices are either contradicted or not mentioned. Of course, for look at the ways in which answer choices may be incorrect. Then number 1, there is often at least one given answer choice that is neither sensible nor logical and therefore cannot be correct. Number 2, there may given answer choices that are contradicted in the passage. A choices may be either directly contradict or indirectly contradict or not exactly what is stated. Directly contradicted. Clearly and directly opposite in meaning to what is this. Indirectly contradicted. What is heard leads you to conclude that the choice is incorrect. Not exactly what is stated. Almost but not quite what the speaker says. Number 3. There may be given answer choices that are not mentioned in the passage. Note that no answer might not be mentioned in the passage and may also lack of logic or sense. Next, look at the ways in which answer choice may be correct. Number 1, a given answer choice may be directly supported by what is stated in the passage. Number 2, a given answer choices may be indirectly supported by what is stated in the passage. That is, what is heard leads you to conclude that the choice is correct answer. When you practice, ask yourself if the given answer choices in a multiple choice questions are directly supported, indirectly supported, not exactly what is stated, not mentioned, directly contradict, indirectly contradict, lacking logic or sense, all or none of the above. It will help you to find the correct answer. For the correct answer, you can get from this type of categories. So consider this to identify. If I repeat, the choices for the answers to a multiple choice questions are either directly or indirectly supported. If this is supported, it means correct. It can be directly or indirectly. If not supported or contradict or not mentioned, is incorrect. Go for the next tip. Tip number 31, Ielts listening test. Multiple choice question time. Consider all the choices. All the above answer choices are correct, or none of the above answer choices is correct. If you do not read the last choice given and it asks you to consider all of the choices as correct or incorrect answer, you might easily make a choice that only partly answers the question. When in the question you will find all the above or none of the above, be careful. Not only answer the answer you find from listening, maybe all the answers are correct, maybe none of the answers are correct. Be careful about this when you do the multiple choice question in the Ielts listening. Go for the next tip. Tip number 32 for Ielts listening is also for the multiple choice question. This is one of the tough question type in listening. Length of the choices. Yes, correct answers in multiple choice questions are often the choices that are the longest. Is one of the tip. The longest answer is the correct answer. Of course, this is not always so, always not true, but most of the time true. However, if you have no alternative but to guess, this hint might help you. If you see multiple choice answer in the paper test or in the computer test, you listen carefully. If you fail to listen that time, you can give the answer, the longest answer in the multiple choice question type. There is a chance of having correct. So this is a plus point. If you even don't listen, just guess, you will get the marks. But this is not always so. Careful about this. Next tip. Tip number 33. IELTS listening. Before you listen, you need to understand what the topic of the talk or conversation is about so that you can predict what ideas and words you might hear. Therefore, read the instruction first. Once you have read the instructions, do not forget to look at the example. Next, you should read the first question and all the possible answer choices to the question. By doing this, you will be prepared for the first question when passage begins. Note that you do not know how much time you have before the passage begins. Underline any keywords or phrases in the question and possible answer choices that you feel might help you in the listening for the answer. Make sure that the keywords or phrases refer to the specific topic of the question. Then you should at least read the other questions for keywords before you read any of the possible answer choices to those questions. This will further assist you with the predicting and prepare you to move on the next question as the question changes. Be ready to give the answer to the first question as soon as the passage begins. Sometimes the answer of the first question is given in the speaker's very first sentence. So the bold letter, I repeat again, the main tips here, be ready to give the answer at the first question as soon as the passage begins. Sometimes the answer of the first question is given in the speaker's very first sentence. Maybe the first sentence is the answer for your questions for multiple choice question type. For multiple choice question type, tip number 33, second page. As you listen, do not overlook all or none of the above answer choices. If in doubt, consider the longest answer after rejecting any illogical answers. In the time given to you at the end of the multiple choice questions, check the choices you have made. Guess the answer to unanswered questions. Do not leave blanks because there is no negative marking for IELTS. If you keep blank, you will get 0. So if you keep A, B, C, D, any of these or 1, 2, 3, 4 or in the multiple choice, they will give you the options. You have a chance to correct your answer 25% because 4 answer is there. Go for next tip number 34 for IELTS listening. Practice for true-false questions. To successfully answer true-false question task, you need to recognize the modifying or qualified word or phrase used in the question statements and listen for them in the passage. Below are some words and phrases that help to modify or qualify what is stated. Must, ought to, don't have to, may, must not, never, however, have to, should, not required to, might, should not, shouldn't, sometimes, but, certainly, necessary to, unnecessary to, can, cannot, often. An exception is will, need to, need not, needn't, could, would not, usually. On the other hand, absolutely isn't, can or may only, it is optional, it is possible, strictly prohibit, always, yet. For the true-false, these are the words that help to modify or qualify what is stated. It will modify is true, it's modify is false. Maybe the statement they will change using this. So these are the words you need to be careful when they use this. If they use must, maybe the sentence meaning changing. They use the should often. Its sentence meaning goes sometimes, doing happening sometimes. Identify any modifying or qualifying words in the true-false question task. You need to identify the modifying words, then answer the question, then you have a chance to answer correct. Next tip number 35 for IELTS listening. True-false questions, 100% words. What does it mean? Be especially careful of true-false question type when the statement given include words such as Always means 100% time. Never means 0%. Means always no. Must is 100%. Have to. I have to do this. You have to do. Rahim has to do. Only. And all the statement, etc. This can also apply when they are exactly false. In fact, statements containing 100% words in true or false questions are quite often false. Most of the time when they use this word is quite false, means most of the time answer is false. They are sometimes purposely included in the test to discover. So for multiple choice question, the longest answer is the answer if you don't read, have a time or don't understand. For true false, if you see the words always, never, must, have to, only, all, this statement in the question, there is a chance to have the answer false. They are sometimes purposely included in the test to discover it's true, but most of the time answer is false. The last tip for listening, number 36 for IELTS listening test, is for true-false question tag. Before you listen, read the instruction carefully as you listen. When you are listening, choose the keywords and topic to listen for and be aware of the question changing. Check the question statements carefully for modifying and qualifying words. Beware of the question statements that contains the word that imply 100%. If necessary, wait for the speaker to qualify that has been said. In the time given to you at the end of the true-false questions, make sure your letters are easy to read. Guess the answer to unanswered questions. Do not leave blanks. If you leave blanks, you will get 0. If you fail, you have a chance of 25%. If you have 4 answers, if you have 2 answers, 50% chance to be correct. Your score will be boosted up. At a glance, all the tips I already explained, so I want to repeat one more time, then finishing the listening tips. Tip number 16, be ready to listen. Tip number 17, learn to predict. Tip number 18, work out the word variables. Tip number 19, the answers are often stressed and repeated. Tip number 20, know when to move on the next question. Tip number 21, look at other questions for the answer. Tip number 22, listen for the speaker changing his or her mind. Tip number 23, use shorthand for speedy writing. Tip number 24, practice for listening gap fills. Tip number 25, listening gap fills, show step by step. Tip number 26, make sure your words and numbers are easy to read. Tip number 27, short answer question, specify the topic. Tip number 28, short answer questions, summing up. Tip number 29, short answer questions, step by step solutions. Tip number 30, practice for multiple choice questions. Tip number 31, 32, 33, all about the multiple choice questions. Tip number 34, practice for the true false questions. Tip number 35,